And joining me on set this morning, Sylvia Tsen, and she is the Senior Director at Quality and Member Relations for the International Federation of Accountants. And she's here to discuss the preparation for professional changes and international perspective. Ms. Tsen, how are you? Good morning.
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Now, first of all, the question, that's pretty, the International Federation of Accountants, what exactly is it? Is it an umbrella body? Is it a professional body? Is it an oversight body?
Umbrella body is actually a great way to think about it, Hema. We actually represent over 170 organizations around the world, and our memberships comprise of professional accountancy institutes. So we don't represent the individual members. We leave that up to our organizations to do that, and we've got members in 130 countries around the world.
Now, looking at when we think of accountants, some of us have a picture in our mind that you crunch numbers all day. And I actually made a joke a few times this morning that when things go really right, we say great job to the CEO, an excellent job to the marketing people. And when they do really bad, we look at the financial people, the accountants and the chartered accountants and the auditors. We're like, really? How did you not see this happening?
Right, right. I don't blame you for having that image in your mind that the accountant is sitting there behind a wall of spreadsheets and a wall of calculators. And it's probably pretty fair to say that in the old days, I guess it's fair to say in the 1950s, 60s, when you didn't have machines, what were you left to do if you had to generate financial information? You had to crunch the numbers. But it's really very different now. I mean, accountancy really is a foundation profession. And other than crunching numbers, I mean, nowadays, if you're going to be a CFO, if you're going to be an auditor, if you're going to actually provide advice to businesses on how you actually should, generate more wealth for yourself, you have to be able to interpret data. You can't just crunch the numbers. You've got to think strategically, and you've got to be able to communicate that. Numbers don't leap off the page and land in your lap. So information and financial information is great, but accountants are much more than that, and that's something we're really proud of.
Now, looking at the trends and the opportunities, what particularly is your organization paying attention to? How are things changing?
I think like every organization that actually works with human beings and trains them up, you have to really scan the landscape. And for me, two things are very important right now, and one of them is talent management. In the year 2020, the Gen Ys are going to be in their 40s. So what does that mean? They're going to be future leaders. They're not going to want to sit behind a desk and just crunch numbers. They're actually going to want a work-life flexibility that's going to allow them to do a lot more with their organization and add more value. But they're actually growing up in a mobile age as well, so they're not actually going to sit there and want to type into their computers. They want to use that data. They want to be virtual, they want to be mobile, and they probably have a curiosity and a creativity that can translate itself to entrepreneurial spirit, and we've got to create the environment to start creating the environment right now to tap into that so that when they get into their 40s, they want to lead organizations, they can do so with finesse.
In terms of talent management, what is the greatest challenge you think that we have to getting it right? Because, people talk about talent, and you have in every team superstar team. You have a superstar on your team, but you have other people that support that superstar. Without the input of everyone, it's not going to happen.
Well, I think that's right. I think if you go back to basics in terms of education, we were all very lucky, many of us, to have education. I think nowadays you've got to make some changes in the education system. I look at my nieces and nephews. There's nothing more irritating to those currently in their 40s and 50s than seeing them playing video games all day. But maybe that's for the future. Maybe the way you teach kids in the future, simulated games, case studies, challenge them. So I think there's something to be done in the education system. And in today's workforce, I think you have to embrace technology. I mean, we hear about virtual, we hear about big data. Do we really know what that means? We love our iPads, we love our cell phones, but how does that translate in the workplace? So we've got to make those changes and introduce those changes.
Now, good business decisions and strategic planning requires reliable information. In Caribbean jurisdictions, information is not the easiest thing to access and to ascertain. Let me give you an example on nationally. Yeah. The Central Statistical Office that we create policy from has a time lag of 3 years or even 4 years. And I know you're going to be like, what? But it's true, because things always move at a slower pace, and we're trying to get that. How important is reliable information from accountants and to the board level in terms of making proper decisions?
It is so important. I can't imagine having to make decisions in growing a country if you have to wait 3 years for statistics. So I guess one of my answers is hire yourself more accountants. No, in all seriousness, Hema, it is very important. I think that especially in the public sector, there's one thing that's not happening compared to the private sector. In the private sector, we've got financial accounting systems that help us generate information right away, both people and technical resources. In the public sector, a lot of times the reforms needed there to get themselves in a ready state to generate information quickly and collect it, interpret, just isn't there. So I really encourage governments to do more, because if you don't, you're going to be held back. 3 years from now, your neighboring regions will be 3 years ahead if you still can't get access to your data.
Does the Caribbean have its game on in terms of competing on an international level? I'm not just talking about competing in terms of product and commodity, but services and our talents as well.
So you're not talking about just the cricket?
No, we're not. And if you saw the game of the Red Steel last night, not a good example this morning.
You know, I'm always very impressed when I come to the Caribbean. A couple things about the Caribbean: you've got drive, ambition. But there's a few things that I think need doing. As IFAC, you know, we do represent professional accountancy institutes, and I'm always surprised at how many countries in the CARICOM region still don't have professional bodies. Professional bodies, legally backed by legislation, are really important because they partner with government, they partner with industry, they partner with education providers to help and develop and train accountants. So if you're sitting in one of the CARICOM countries, so for example, Antigua, or Suriname, and you don't have a professional body, how can you access the professionalized accountancy education you need? So I encourage more work to be done there.
Your closing comment: when people leave after hearing your presentation, what is the one thing that you want them to leave with?
I want them to go away from this conference. I want them to jump in. I want them to be proud of how many people are here, 700 professional accountants. Take part in the debate, but focus on results. It's enough to just think and discuss the issues, but we want action.
Looking at the action. We take a short break. When we come back, we'll have our final interview for this morning.